Prince Alfred, given the sort of the nature of the regime here and the nature of the human rights record of the regime, which is, according to the United Nations, very bad, and given that this is a country that is being isolated by the international community, by UN sanctions, why is it that you felt it's important for your foundation to come here, and what is it that you're trying to achieve by doing that?
If we face, as we did do it many times, different regimes which are not fitting in the democratic concept, we have basically two choices. Either we go in confrontation or we enter into dialogue. And the more we go into the confrontation, the more likely some military intervention or war will happen. And this is not what many people want to see today, including me, myself, and our International Peace Foundation.
What do you think you've seen here this week? What struck you particularly, and how representative do you think it is of the reality of North Korea?
The reality as I feel it, because I cannot look through completely yet, but is that this is probably the last country in the world which holds up a communist socialist ideology. And neither China nor Vietnam nor Laos, any of the officially communist countries are, in my eyes, still pure communist. But here they try to do this. That means, to a certain degree, also this is the large-scale socio-economic experiment which I find, as in my scientific mind, quite interesting to study. Because, you see, we tried now also with Professor Kitland, because I told him, let's try to find out how the system works here. Yeah? So, it's a system where you have practically everything for free for the citizens. Yeah? So you have, they don't pay rent. All the apartments are provided by the government for all citizens. It's free education, it's free healthcare, it's free pension. It's to a certain degree, to a particular stock of food, to the elementary food, it's free, provided by the government. So this is mind-boggling. I mean,
it's also a system that's failed everywhere else that's been used in the world.
Yes, but here it seems that it did not fail, but that it, you know, that the system improves. This is my understanding. And so we tried to find out how the budgeting process works in this country, for instance. Because if you don't have taxes as revenues, but everything is provided by the government, where does the money come from?
It's an interesting question.
We did not understand this. And so it's also interesting that even at the economic faculty at the Kim Il-sung University, where we had a special meeting, you know, with Professor Kitland and me, with all the economic professors, we could not look through, really. I mean, obviously it seems that because, which is an explanation, but we cannot understand yet the details, that the state, the profits from the state-owned companies is used for, as the main revenue for the government to invest. But I feel that if no war happens, that probably in 15 to 20 years, at least Pyongyang would be a kind of Singapore, because the government sincerely invests into science, technology and education and in children. This is for sure. I mean, and they do it in a way which is amazing. So I think it's, as I said, I mean, in many ways, a large-scale socio-economic experiment, because also we have here 3 generations which are kept in complete isolation. So they have no access to pornography, they have no access to Hollywood films, they have no access to most of the things which our young people are exposed to from a very early age. So,
and that's a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, history will show. But I tell you that my feeling, and I'm sure might get criticized for this, but my feeling is that it's I don't know the English term, you have to think on the fruits, you know, as it says in the Bible. You will recognize it on the fruits of what they do. I mean, I don't know how to say it better in English now. So I did not make a judgment yet, but I feel that the level of enthusiasm and the level of willingness of the young people here to learn, to concentrate on education and to make something out of them, the level of ambition is very and extremely high. Yeah? And also, you know, since 2 years at least, the government requested that every young person from the age of 7 has to learn obligatory English. So you see, this is not a country which wants to continue to live in isolation. They are preparing the young people that English becomes the official language #2 here. They want that everybody speaks English because it's obligatory to go in school, and from the primary school now since 2 years, English obligatory. So I mean, there are many interesting facets, you know, and this is what I think could be interesting for international media, because we know the other part, yeah, we know, I mean, it's part of the axis of evil and blah blah blah, but I'm interested in what's really going on here, and also to look in the positive sides. And there are very interesting things going on here. I mean, it's not all show. This I can, I mean, I cannot underscribe, you know, that everything is show here.
The state is concerned to only show a perfect face to the world, and that makes it difficult to understand what the reality of life is here.
Yes, but as I told you, I think there are still a lot of things to explore, and of course I'm not naive. We know how it worked in the Soviet Union and so on. I mean, all these games we know, but yet it's interesting whether this is an alternative model to the, let's say, capitalistic overall model which exists, you know, and many years ago, Islam and even Tony Blair did speak about a third way, yeah, between capitalism and communism, and that what happens here might develop also in some alternative, which is quite interesting. I don't know, but I'm scientifically enough interested to look for the deeper levels of what's going on here, but not in the journalistic way, but in a kind of, let's say, dialogue way, yeah, to find out what's going on. And maybe just one thing I just wanted to point out also regarding dialogue and peace and military intervention or military solution or whatever you call it. We have this inside view to the outside and the outside view to the inside. Yeah, I also did speak briefly about this in the opening speech. And I remember some years ago, not too long ago, I did speak with a very high-level person in the United States, and we were sitting together drinking a little bit of wine, and so had a good talk, relaxed talk, and I think we did speak about the Soviet Union and Putin, and I tried to also, let's say, make in our dialogue this evening to make the American person a little bit better understanding the Russian side. Yeah, said, I mean, one have to look always, if you are seriously interested in a dialogue or in peace, then you have to understand both sides. Yeah. So you have to be some empathy and look at the history of this country and what they think and so on. And the answer was then, because maybe a little bit of wine, I mean, inspires the people to come out with certain things. So he said, why should I be interested what the Russians think? I said, yeah, because it might be good for peace. He said, you know what I'm going to tell you? If they don't comply with what we want, we will bomb the shit out of them. I said, okay, this was a clear answer, yeah, but this is not my way. You understand? So I'm not, the international community made such stupid things in Syria, in Iraq, in Libya, and always the same mistakes. I mean, it's a very different situation here, but I'm not in favor of bombing the shit out of the people, because they had it here, you know, in the war. And if you look at these photos of Pyongyang, then you will see, I mean, in 1953, there was no house existing anymore. So that these people now, after the Japanese occupation and colonialism, and then the war, that they are tired of war, and that they have a trauma of war, and that they have an extreme feeling of insecurity, because for them, of course, the aggressors are the United States and the outside world. So they just claim the right to have the right to self-determination, the right to choose freely about the reunification of their country, which is divided, and they want a peace contract. And all the officials, you know, because we had meetings with the people from the Central Committee and the acting head of state and so on. We had long discussions and we had open discussions. So I'm not naive here, and it's not my way not to speak out clearly what I think. But they are able for dialogue, yeah, and they all, I mean, unisono, they told me, we want a peace treaty with the United States. And if we get a peace treaty, and if we get the right, you know, for self-determination, if we can negotiate freely about the future of the Korean nation as a whole, we are prepared to discuss, to put our nuclear program under international control. They are not rejecting this. I mean, this is what I was told on all levels up to the highest level. So there is room of negotiation, and there's a need for dialogue.
Are you concerned? You've been followed by a local TV team, by local journalists as well. You clearly are appearing on local media here, and so are all the Nobel laureates. How much of a danger is there that you are being used as a propaganda tool of the North Korean government?
It's irrelevant for me. I mean, for me, the important part is that we really start to enter into a process of dialogue about peace. And the main element, you know, I was part of many of these kind of things in the former Soviet Union. And also in the transition, I was engaged very much in the transition of the former Soviet Union countries and the Eastern Europe to democratic forms of governance. So, of course, you have to start somewhere, you know, and it always starts at science and technology level, because this is a universal language, and as I also said in my opening speech, 1 and 1 is 2 in North Korea, in the United States, in the UK, and everywhere. So mathematics and some other form of science is a natural way to find common ground. Yeah? And this is what we do here. We start on a field to enter into dialogue and to foster international exchange, hopefully of students, but now in our case of scientists, and they easily find each other, and you can be witness now, or you have been witness, you know, how easy people can start to speak to each other. So what we do is what you call in the technical term a track 3 diplomacy, yeah? People-to-people diplomacy, because we don't trust that our governments are doing the right thing. Yeah? Neither this government here nor our governments, because they are both engaged in propaganda. And this does not lead to anything except war. And you see, it's all these double standards which I really don't like too, because, I mean, some years ago with China it was a similar situation, but with China everybody makes an exemption because it's big business, yeah. So, for instance, but I mean, look at Saudi Arabia, look at, I mean, some other regimes which are so close to our Western world, and then, you know, the whole ISIS is a creation of Saudi Arabia, but nobody touches this really. Anyway, but this goes too far.
Mm. Yeah? And it's fashionable to pick on North Korea.
No, it's not
safe.
Fashionable. It's not fashionable. I don't care about fashion. It's probably one of the spots which is now the most dangerous, I would say. And this has nothing to do with fashionable, it's just that it's kind of even more important than ever to enter into dialogue because the tensions are rising very strong. And now regarding propaganda, you see the media, in at least also in the countries where I follow the media, I don't know exactly in the UK, they report about the very aggressive propaganda of the regime here and threatening the United States and South Korea or whomever with nuclear weapons. But this round of propaganda was starting in the beginning of March or the end of February, when again the United States and South Korea did have military maneuvers, and the biggest ever, as I understand. And the official goal of these maneuvers was to invade North Korea. Yeah? So, what do you expect that the answer of the regime will be? If there is any way a fight on the propaganda level on both sides. Yeah? So one move calls in the next move, and the whole thing is building up in a direction which I don't want to see. So of course we are a tiny little piece here in this whole game, but at least, you know, one day when I close my eyes to leave this earth, I want to say to myself that here and there I tried to do something which I'm convinced that it's the right thing to do at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
That's it?
Yeah.